Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Morning Cup. I am so honored today because I have Susan Young with me, and she is an award-winning storyteller and speaker coach. She's the CEO of Get in Front Communications, a 22-year consulting company. Susan works with entrepreneurs, therapists, coaches, and speakers who want to share their story in a bold and impactful way so they can have more paid speaking gigs, interviews, and clients. Susan is a former radio news reporter and on-air anchor. She has interviewed everyone from homeless people to presidents. She received her NLP certification in 2009. Has been honored as Entrepreneur of the Year and is one of the top 75 badass women on Twitter. She hosts Communication Nation on Facebook as well. Thank you so much, Susan, for being here today.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to our talk.
Likewise. And I would just love for you to kind of dive into what got you here today. You've accomplished so much, but what was that journey like for you?
Oh my gosh. It's such an interesting, everything's a story to me. So I'll share my story. I basically didn't talk till I was 4 years old. And I didn't realize that's like a thing. I didn't know how, people were talking, it cobbled together some sentences and all. And I didn't know that, until I had kids. And then I found out, oh my gosh, 4 years old, you're supposed to be talking by then. And so my parents took me to the doctor. We lived in Brooklyn at the time. And, they said they thought I was deaf. They said, no, she can hear just fine. She just doesn't need to talk, because when I was hungry, I went to the fridge and banged on the door. So they knew I was hungry. So, but I took in a lot, like around I watched people and I took it all in. And so what does a 4-year-old child who doesn't talk till they're 4 do with her life? Well, she grows up to major in mass communication. And ironically, and what I did was I went to college in Connecticut and was pretty convinced I was going to write for Rolling Stone magazine. And then I found the radio station on campus and I was just smitten. So I got involved with news. I graduated, and then 10 years I spent in the New Jersey, New York, Philadelphia media market as an on-air radio news anchor and a reporter, interviewing everyone from homeless people to presidents. And what's interesting, back then it was the 1980s, no CNN or 24-hour news like Fox or anything. I was trained as an old school journalist. If you ask questions, your opinion doesn't matter. And, you put the microphone in, you ask politicians and what's the hot issue of the day, edit the tape, write the story, go on the radio, deliver the newscast. And so I got it in my head that I got paid to ask questions and I didn't have to have any answers. But what really got into my internal story was that my voice didn't matter. Even though my voice was my livelihood, I always thought that nobody cared about my opinion because I was always in the background asking somebody else. Oh. So what happened was, and then one day my older sister goes into the dentist office and I'm on the radio at this rock station doing the news. And they said, isn't that your sister? And she said, yeah, it's great to hear her on the radio because we can just turn her off. So anyway, I do all these interviews and I talk to people. And then 22 years ago, I started my business as an entrepreneur and it started as a public relations company because people wanted to know how to get free press and publicity and work with the media. It's like a big mystery. And so having been in the trenches on the other side, that's what I was, really, really big on, and grew to multiple 6 figures in about 3 years without technology, without a budget, and without a team. But I still felt like my voice didn't matter, but people wanted to hear my story. I went out and spoke, and I wrote articles and was a columnist. And, it took some therapy. It took some introspection, some meditation and mindfulness and all that to finally come to the conclusion that I do have something to say. And my message, I think, to everybody is that we're all born with a voice. And especially now with social, is that we need to speak up. People want to know what your opinion is. They want to know how you feel and, what you hold true in your heart. And so I've come to embrace that in a lovely way.
Wow. What a story too. Just the journey that you've been on, but you are absolutely right. Your voice does matter. And I love that that's what you're starting with too, because I think everybody goes through something, but our opinions do matter. Our thoughts do matter. Our feelings matter, all of those things. But from being able to take that and apply it, and now being a speaker coach too, I'm curious if you could dive into that a little bit as well, just from your experience and being able to use your voice, but now helping others too.
Yeah, it's interesting because as a reporter, I've been a storyteller really for 35 years, telling other people's stories. I share my story now, like I just did with you.
Yeah.
But most entrepreneurs don't realize that that they are the lead magnet. You don't need a free ebook or, SEO. I mean, you need some of that, but if you're looking to attract customers and clients, you need to speak up. Go look in the mirror. You are the message. You are the voice. Nobody's going to buy from you because you have a slick branding logo or nice pictures or anything like that. They want to hear what you stand for and what you value. And so that's what I teach folks. And it really does come down to that. Most of my clients don't believe that they're worthy of sharing their story. And typically they say to me, I don't have a story. And I'm like, you do, you just don't realize it. So I consider myself an emotional archaeologist. I'm very, very curious from the time I was a little kid. And what I do is I come into conversations, just conversations, not interviews or anything. And I ask good questions. I bring in an invisible shovel and I dig away just by asking questions. I'm like, I'm going to pull it out of you, but I promise it won't hurt. It's just a conversation. Yeah. And everybody usually says, oh my gosh, it was right under my nose. I'm like, yes, it was. But you have to go through the process. And with me, it's very easy. I think just being an outsider and just hearing these stories and asking the right questions. So, when you ask quality questions, you get quality information. If you're not getting the information that you want, I find that it's better to ask better questions. So the onus is really not on the person that you're talking to, but it's really on us as the leader of the conversation.
Oh, well said. It's so true because I think too, it's what we ask. It's going around it too, because there's a lot of depth to what's going on, and it is pulling it out in a strategic way sometimes. Yeah. I know, being a former therapist, that was definitely my thing. But I'm curious because, you mentioned that you didn't have all the tools like back then when you had originally started to what tools are now for like social media and all these like lead magnets and everything that we do. But what was that journey like when you started your own business, when you were really growing it without any of those things?
Yeah. It's interesting that when I started and I told my parents I was starting my own business, and my mother said to me, you work hard for other people, you might as well work hard for yourself. So what I've done is, and I've always been very focused, very motivated, very driven, as you might know, the book Driven, which I would highly recommend to people because I read that about a month ago, and every page is highlighted, notes folded. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is me. This is totally me. You don't fit into stay in the classroom. I roam around, looking for things that must be interesting, because that science test in Mrs. Rosenthal's class was not interesting. There must be something more out there. So what I wrote on my office whiteboard at the time, without the technology, without the team, without the budget, was my job is to make the phone ring. So back then, of course, now it's your email or your website is your calling card. But back then it was people would call you on the phone, the yellow pages kind of thing. I know I'm dating myself. So my job was to make the phone ring. And the way to do that was to speak and to write. Because as I mentioned, people had this mystery bubble, this cloud about what's PR? How can I get to those grumpier reporters? How can I wind up in the paper and get those articles like that are behind me laminated for my lobby, or, the therapists that I work with, and the lawyers and the graphic designers and the hospitals and the doctors and everybody in between, the jewelry store that's, got 3 generations in there. Everybody needs PR, because if you're the best kept secret, you're not going to do well in business. So it's time to let the cat out of the bag. And that's what I did. And I did it really well, enough so to again, bring in multiple 6 figures and then grow my team and rent some office space and all that. But it always comes back to storytelling and, having those relationships. So I was the bridge, I was the conduit between the clients who were confused. And then I had all these media contacts, even, people that I knew from my own experience being, in broadcasting and at press conferences and everything for 10 years. But also, I know their mindset. So for instance, a client says to me, I want to mail them this proposal, this pitch, and it's like 3 pages with pamphlets and a book. I'm like, they're not gonna. They have so many books on there that are collecting dust on the shelf. Don't bother. They're not going to read this. You need a quick phone call. Hey, you got a second? I've got a great client for you. Fits right into your 12 o'clock newscast in the family section there. You could do an interview with her and her husband and their adult son who has a disability. How about like Friday at 10? And they say, no, we can do Monday at 3. Okay. And then we send over the talking points and schedule everything. Yeah. Easy, fast. Not everything gets picked up, of course. You pitch things that don't always work out. But that's it, to be proactive and to not be afraid to make that phone call. And, look, as I said, I've been in business for 22 years. I've always invested in myself from right out of the gate. And I don't look at it as what is this going to cost me as far as a training or a seminar or a program. I'm self-taught in sales, listening to, Zig Ziglar and Jeffrey Gitomer and Brian Tracy, years ago on cassette tapes, with notebook at 11:30 at night when the kids would go to bed. So I did all that. And what I've come to realize is that we have to invest in ourselves. And so my theory, I have a coach too, as I was alluding to a minute ago. I just finished up a year-long mastermind. And I think it's always good to just learn from people who are 5 to 10 steps ahead of yourself. Yeah. So that you can, get to where that, to really reach your potential.
Absolutely. You're totally spot on. I think everything goes back to personal development and investing in yourself. Because a lot of times people might have that scarcity mindset of like, oh, how much this is going to cost me, versus reframing that and be like, wow, what am I going to get on the investment I'm putting in for myself to really grow and evolve and just learn from different walks of life and people that are a few steps ahead, so they can really take you to that next level as well and continue to grow. Because I think we can learn from everyone. Everyone has a story to tell, but also has so much wisdom too, that we might hear a different thing from a different person when it might be the same exact concept, but we hear it differently as well. So I'm curious, because you did start your business 22 years ago, it's incredible. You've had an incredible journey. What have been some of the roadblocks or bumps in the road that you've experienced growing your business?
Well, we might need a glass of wine and, like 3 hours here, but I'll try to kind of encapsulate it. Yeah. I guess the first big one was, of course, there's the day-to-day things like, trying to do everything and learn how to run a business and be that entrepreneur and be the rainmaker and bring in the money and make the phone ring and take care of this and that and raise a family. I have a very supportive, loving husband. We're married now 32 years. We've got 2 grown kids who are adulting in their 20s. And so what happened was the first big thing was that we have our daughter, Stephanie, is the oldest, and she just turned 29. And when she was about 15, we ran into some major mental health issues with Stephanie, and she was really suffering. And we had moved from New Jersey to San Antonio, Texas, 16 years ago. And so, we tried to get her help here in San Antonio, but the services back then, even now, they're just, really not, they're far from impressive, as most, places are. And so, we found out that she was eating disordered, and that eating disorders are not about food. Like alcohol is not, about the liquor, but it's about those underlying layers and deep emotional mental health. And we were like, this was a crash course in, oh my gosh, what's going on here? And at the time it was about 2008. So my husband, who works corporate, was laid off from his job because the economy crashed, and he was out of work for about 2 years. I was a basket case because everything's falling apart and we don't know what to do with Stephanie. And, we have basically 2 unemployed adults, and a child and a son who's 2 years younger. So we make the decision to send Stephanie out to Salt Lake City, Utah, to a 1-year residential treatment program. We had, they don't take insurance, about $8,000 a month at the time. And that's it. We that's what we did. We've never been to Salt Lake City. We were from the East Coast and didn't know anybody there. And we sent her clear across the country. And so when she came back, she still wasn't better. She was healed in some ways. She graduated high school there. She got her, high school diploma and took her SATs, which was great. She's very smart, very talented musically, but she's just really sensitive inside. And we didn't know how to manage her. And, like we said earlier, that nobody talks about their feelings. Nobody talks, like I said, we were from Brooklyn, and it was like, brush it off. And, people were upset, they kind of sweep it under the rug. But now, especially the last year or so, as we see, there's no rug to sweep it under.
No.
We need to have these kinds of conversations about mental health, about abuse, about trauma, about how to, call the suicide prevention hotline and all that.
Yeah. So
we got through this 10 agonizing years of this crisis of turning our family inside out and upside down. And thankfully, we are all together, healthy and whole. Stephanie got engaged last year. She lives with her fiance. She works corporate. She got her college degree. She has a Bachelor of Science degree, and is just doing really, really well. Repaired a lot of relationships that she needed to. And, people say to me, what's your biggest accomplishment in life? And I say, we saved our daughter's life. And that's all I got to go on. So I can put my head down on the pillow at the end of the day and say, all is well.
Oh my gosh.
She's my hero. Yeah, she is my hero.
I believe it. And just knowing like the psychology behind eating disorders and everything, all the underlining aspects of it. But I'm so glad that you guys were able to get her the help she needs, and she is thriving now. And
she is,
right. That's huge. That's
super
huge.
Proud. Yeah.
Just knowing what people have gone through and just even working in the mental health field for so long, it really is just so amazing that she got the help she needed, and you guys made that sacrifice and not knowing what was going to happen. But that is a huge hurdle. And I'm so glad to hear that everybody's healthy, happy, and thriving, because that can take such a toll, and it is a journey, but it
was rough. Yeah.
I believe it. I absolutely believe it. Of course, I don't know exactly how you went through it, but you did it and you got to the other side of it.
I will add one thing that's interesting about this whole thing that happened, this journey, is that last month our son graduated from law school. And so he's 26, Danny, and everyone says, oh my gosh, you must be so proud of Danny. And I'm thinking, we're really proud of Stephanie. She gets out of bed every day with this, depression and anxiety and things and body image issues. And like I say, I'm super proud, obviously, of both of them. I don't compare them, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, you have no idea.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Because a lot of people have no idea what goes on behind closed doors as well.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you being so transparent and vulnerable about your experience, because I do think that is such a huge accomplishment for Stephanie. That's my sister's name actually too.
Okay.
But really being able to get through that and understand that it was the work that went into that as well, and not giving up on her, and her not giving up on her.
Yeah, that was a big thing. Yep.
As well. Thank you for sharing that story. And that's very powerful. And if anyone is struggling, I will definitely leave resources below too, because that is something that is really important to get help on as well. But with that being said too, moving forward through all the ups and downs, what have been some of the highlights of your experience on this entrepreneurial journey that you've experienced?
I would say, there's a lot. Obviously, I win the Entrepreneur of the Year award in New Jersey, in Edison, where I grew up. So it's my hometown, and the Chamber of Commerce, honors me at this ballroom, dinner and awards thing. So that was really, that's always special. I won some awards from the Associated Press and from the Broadcasters Association for work that I did in news. And I think that just really, it goes beyond that, though. The awards, you think about, okay, that's nice. But the people that I helped to grow their businesses and to, I worked with a lot of nonprofits, too. In fact, before I started my company for a year, I worked as a PR director for the ARC of New Jersey, which is a developmental disabilities, autism, epilepsy, and, some other disabilities. And so I really got a close look, and I had worked also in Governor Whitman's office of radio and television. So, and from being in news, I knew a lot about nonprofits and how they work, and, the needs of the community and the funding and all that. So I worked with a lot of nonprofits when I started my business, and I still do. And so just being able to help them to share their stories. And, I just told you about what happened in my family, but, our dear friends have a son, Matthew, who is 24, I think now, who has profound autism. He doesn't speak, he's nonverbal. And he's been in a supervised apartment with another young man who has a similar disability since he's like 16 or 17, because they couldn't keep him home. He was, self-harm and violent and everything. And so, all I think of is that when they got that diagnosis when Matt was 2, there's no end in sight. At least we had an end in sight that Stephanie could be okay, and she is. But this is a lifelong thing. So being able to share stories like that with the media to educate people, to help these families to, raise money or share some, to have clearinghouse for resources with caregiver support and things like that. That's what really is close to my heart.
Absolutely. It's seeing that change too, but even bringing awareness, because you're right. A lot of people don't know the depth of the struggles that happen every day, day in, day out of what somebody is experiencing. And I think it's just that education piece is so key of just being able to help more people as well. So I appreciate you bringing that into the conversation as well. With that being said, I'm curious, what are 2 to 3 different tips that you can give us when people are on the entrepreneurial journey that to help them continue moving forward in their business?
Okay. So I have a lot of quotes and wisdom and all that. So I'm just going to drop these for you.
Yeah.
One is be tenacious, even when you're tired. Stick with it, stay with it. The second one is, as I mentioned, always learn from someone who's 5 to 10 steps ahead of you. Because that's where you're going to make the progress, and don't look at things as an investment. And I think that the third one really is about self-care. And I'll share this quick one with you.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs are the only people that are required for, there's a very blurry line between professional and personal development when it comes to us. And so our work forces us to look deep into ourselves. Why did I not feel like I had a voice? How can I show up bigger and better and bolder for the people who need my help? And so, if I feel like, there's no self-love, or I'm feeling crappy about myself or something that happened, and I write an email to send out, or I come on an interview like this, people pick up on that. Yeah. And so it affects my paycheck. It affects my livelihood. If you work for somebody, like I say, my husband works in corporate, if you work at the bank, if you work, in the supermarket, or you're a lawyer, even if you're hating on yourself every day, you still get a paycheck. And that's what separates us from them.
You are absolutely right. That is a huge differentiation between the two. People might not know, but it's sticking with it. And I just appreciate everything that you've shared with us today. You are a wealth of knowledge. And we're going to jump into the rapid fire questions if you're ready for them.
I am ready.
All righty. The first question is, who is your hero?
My hero, as I mentioned, is Stephanie, my daughter.
Yes, absolutely. What motivates you to work smarter?
I'm tired. I gotta be honest, I'm tired. There are so many ways to do things better, especially, obviously with technology. We have the resources, but the question I always ask myself and other, my clients, we have the resources, but are you being resourceful? And, we can go on and do a video or something and go viral. You don't need the media really to get your message out anymore. You are the media. You've got the laptop, you've got Facebook, you can do a live video, that's TV. You can go on YouTube, you write a blog post that's published. You can do a podcast. You're a broadcaster. You have the media right there. You don't need to really pitch your story. I mean, yes, it's good to have those articles and things back there. I think it's a good blend, but we have to be resourceful.
Yes, it's giving ourselves those opportunities to take advantage of. If you could share a meal with any 4 individuals, living or dead, who would they be?
I would say my grandparents, who I had a profoundly close relationship with. Probably Jesus and the Dalai Lama.
That'd be a good mix.
That'd be an interesting conversation. Yeah. My grandma was born in Brooklyn in 1899 and lived to be 95 years old. So I'm picturing her sitting around the table with grandpa and the Dalai Lama, and Jesus. I mean, we're Jewish. So
yeah.
I'm thinking Moses. And then I'm like, no, I think Jesus might be an interesting conversation.
Yeah. I would actually want to join in on that. You don't
hate to be a fly on the wall, right?
Definitely. What is the most daring thing you've ever done?
Um, well, I went parasailing in Mexico.
Oh.
This is before the kids were born. This was a big vacation before Stephanie came along. Yeah. Young, fun, tan, stupid. I don't know what you call it, but it was, it was really an experience.
I believe that. I'm sure that was a lot of fun too. Scary, but like the height thing, but
Yeah.
What is the phone app that you use the most?
I use a program, an app called Focus at Will, and it's focus and then the @ sign and will, WILL. And I heard about this on a podcast years ago. I've been using this for so long. It's scientifically engineered music that gets into your brain like right away. A lot of people with ADD and attention issues use it. I don't think I have ADD. I think I've been tested, but I've never had any signs. I gave it to my son actually because he has ADD. But it's just, as soon as you turn it on, it gets you right into the zone of like, oh my God, hyper focus. So there's all different kind of channels. You can listen to like classical music. You can listen to like spa music with dripping water and waves and stuff. So you just pick what you want, and it's wonderful. There's like a 14-day, I think, a free trial, and then it's just $10 a month, and it has really kept me, focused and productive.
Yeah, I've never heard of that app. I'm definitely going to check it out. So thank you for recommending that. What is the last book you've read?
I just finished Mel Robbins, who wrote I think it's called the five habits or something. It's the high five habit, right?
Oh,
you
yes.
give yourself a high five in the mirror, every morning. Yeah, and it's
fun.
a lot about self-care and taking care of yourself, pouring into yourself. I always say, you have to pour into yourself, because if when Stephanie was sick, I'll just give you this real fast, is that one of my mentors in New Jersey, who also suffers from mental illness, and she's like 75 years old now, but she told me, I called her up, crying and boo, and she helped get us through this mess. And I said, I'm trying to look at the glass as half full, and she says, Susan, your glass is empty, but you have a glass. Oh. So fill it up. So I just scheduled a massage for later today, frankly, and, trying to slow down and not be that hyper-focused, lunatic that runs around trying to stuff, as my husband says, 5 pounds of crap into a 3-pound bag. Why are you stressed out? I don't know. I make my own schedule. Why am I running around like this? So I think pulling back a little bit, you can, especially with technology now, you can work. You don't have to work as much. You don't have to work till your eyeballs bleed, and you can make triple the money.
Yes, absolutely. No, I'm glad you brought that up, because self-care is so key. That's what we talk a lot about on here. Self-love, being able to prioritize yourself first and foremost, so the cup overflows to everybody else, but you have to have a full cup. So I'm glad you brought that up. So if you do have a day off, speaking of self-care and everything, what's your favorite way to spend the day off?
Well, I'm a beach bum. So if we go back and forth between Texas and New Jersey, because we have family in both, but it's brutally hot here in the summer in San Antonio. And we usually go back to New Jersey for the summer, or at least a big chunk of it, where we have family there too. So the beach, people say, oh, go to the Gulf or the lake. I'm like, I need the ocean. I need the beach. So the real beach. Yes. So we go to the Jersey Shore. When we're here in Texas, we'll go to the pool or sit outside. Got a nice hammock on the terrace that overlooks the golf course. So just being outside, I think, is just very peaceful for me.
Yes, no, especially the ocean is so calming, or just the pool, the water. It does something to our psychological aspect of life, but it's definitely necessary. And what's something an outsider wouldn't know about your industry?
You have to have something to say. You've got to speak up and use your voice. And I think this comes really nicely full circle to where we started, is that you have to have something to say, so that, people want to be interviewed. They want to go on podcasts. They want to be, in radio and TV and print and, interviews, but you have to be willing to say something. If you want to be quoted, you have to take a stand and be firm and convicted in your position. Like I just saw something earlier today, on the web page, the news, economist says this is that the housing bubble is going to crash or something in 6 months. That's why he got quoted. The people who are afraid to say that, they don't get quoted. The media doesn't want to talk to them because they don't have anything interesting to say. Got to be bold. You've got to show up. Got to use your voice.
And I mean, it starts like what we said from the beginning, you using your voice and knowing that it did matter, and now helping so many other individuals use their voice and impact so many people too with their stories. And I'm so honored that you came on here today. But before I let you go, where can people find you? What do you have going on? I know you have some things coming up as well, but if you could share with us, we'll definitely link everything below as well.
Appreciate that. Yeah. The website is sueyoungmedia.com. We host a group on Facebook called Communication Nation, which is open and obviously to everybody. Communication Nation. Do a lot of programs. We're just starting the Paid Speaker Academy of how entrepreneurs, therapists, coaches, health and wellness folks, aspiring speakers, authors can get paid speaking gigs because you have a story, you have expertise, and people always say, I want to share my gift. I want to impact more people. I want to share my story. And you can. Mm-hmm. And get paid for it too. So, how do you connect with event organizers and meeting planners and people that hire speakers so that you can share your story in a workshop or breakout session or a keynote, maybe even on a webinar nowadays. So there's just so many opportunities to be able to share your story, reach more people, and grow your business at the same time.
Yes, so beautifully said. And we so appreciate you coming on today, just being so transparent, vulnerable, and sharing your powerful story with us and how you are changing the world and how you're giving other people permission to share their stories by sharing yours. So thank you so much, Susan, for taking the time today to coming on.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment below. What was the biggest takeaway from Susan? What did you learn? I'm sure she would love to see it as well. And we'll see you on the next video.